Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Linemiller, your host. Sometimes in the agriculture industry, we don't think about what happens behind the scenes and what technology is needed to support everything we do with our food. Today, we have an expert in that area. I want to welcome to the show Heather Clare. She is the manager of Smart Ag for SaskTel. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We are delighted to have you, and we love to dive into technology and support that's going on in the food industry. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what SaskTel is and what you do there?
For sure. So SaskTel it's a provincial crown corporation. We're a telecom, and we're the only government-owned telecom in Canada. As a crown corporation, we're our own business entity, but the government of Saskatchewan is our only shareholder. All of our profits are returned back to the province to support other areas and programs as needed, like healthcare, education, roadways. So we're providing a critical service in terms of the telecommunication side, but we're also funding other critical services within the province. And because of our structure, we're mandated to provide high quality services to all areas of our province, which is really different than our competition. Um, it results in the less populated areas or communities getting the infrastructure and services that our competitors wouldn't necessarily put out there in those less populated areas. Um, like we're providing the same kind of services to rural as we are to the large cities. And we have the best rural cell coverage in Canada. In previous jobs, I've traveled all over my wonderful country up here in Canada. I love it up here. But rural services aren't necessarily the same quality corner to corner. And we take a lot of pride in the fact that here in Saskatchewan, we have fantastic coverage in the rural areas. And we're also bringing fiber optics to communities that are all as low as 150 people.
Wow.
So it's a really unique structure of a company that serves everybody. It's really neat place to work.
That's great. Thank you for the background there, because I know in the United States, for example, where I am, that is one of the challenges and one of the initiatives that's top of mind for everyone is getting service to some of the more rural communities. But you're mandated to do that. And so that's really great to have the best service to the rural communities. I mean, that is definitely something to hang your hat on because, like you said, some of the for-profit companies, I know you still have to show a profit, but you are really serving all of your everyone that's in your
Absolutely.
area. Yeah.
Yeah, and I work in a really unique area within the company. Like we have 3,300 employees, but there are only 11 of us in my little area that is devoted to using our existing infrastructure that we need as a telecom in unique ways, or also finding new investments, testing out new opportunities, and bringing that infrastructure to the people in a different way, like working with businesses and seeing if there's a way that we can make our infrastructure available to them to build off of.
Right. Well, and you mentioned your previous background, in Canada, but working with other companies. And this uniquely positions you to have the purview that you have in this area of industry.
Yeah, I've had a unique road, we'll say. Never ever thought I would be working for a telecom. Um, I grew up on a farm. I'm second youngest of five kids, grew up in rural Saskatchewan, grain farm, and a whole pile of cats and a dog. I have a commerce degree. I went into the ag industry on the business side of things for the first part of my career. Um, I sold seed and chemical, and I walked fields, and I bought grain, like a classic agriculture job, sales job that you'd think of. And I about 8 years ago, I started transitioning to more of the ag tech side. I had an opportunity to join uh, a scaling startup that was really exploding up here in Canada. And we were the first ones to provide or show farms how to do data analytics at a farm level to help them. Like all of the big companies were using it in order to do inventory management and projections and all sorts of stuff, but the farms weren't necessarily using data analytics. And it was a really cool time. We were developing tools to help predict when your crop was going to be in the next stage, or, you know, if you're going to have midge, now's the time to go look. So it was a really cool way of using data and creating ways to improve efficiencies at a farm level. And then after that company, I was sales, and then I became a product lead for them. That lasted 4 or 5 years. And then
Mhm.
I transitioned to the product manager of a drone company. And we were using on-edge computing and applying AI to um, see if we could separate the weeds from the crop and only spray the weeds, thereby decreasing the amount of chemical in the food supply.
Yeah.
So we were trying to find a way to do no, try to find a way to leave the agronomic decisions in the hands of the farmer, but make it as sustainable and responsible as possible. So it was kind of the best of both worlds, if you will. And I can't believe I've almost been 20 years in this ag industry after university, but it's been a unique road and I've really enjoyed it. And now I get to take all of that knowledge and apply it at this level and help not just individuals, but, you know, our farms, our small businesses, our corporations, and help them find different unique solutions within the ag industry.
Yeah, it does uniquely position you. And you told me that SaskTel has a focus on data and IoT across. And so how in the smart ag space that you're working in, how can you help? How do you help the farmers?
Well, in some ways, there's multiple aspects, to be honest. There's the direct connection. Like we have a couple of farms that we've been working with, and they went out into the industry and were trying to find a solution for fleet tracking. It was stage one of their project. They couldn't find anything, and it just happened to be a conversation where somebody at SaskTel was talking to one of these farmers. They know each other outside of work, and hey, this is what we're looking for, and we don't know where to go. And the guy from SaskTel went, let me take this to my team and see what we can find. And it turned into a really fantastic fleet solution that has continued to evolve. I also work with some small startups. We're providing the SIM cards that are going into their different IoT solutions, so Internet of Things. We're also helping companies come into Canada with unique solutions. There's a company out of Brazil that has this really cool 7-foot square robot with a 40-foot boom, and it's using AI to do somewhat the same thing that I was doing at the drone company. So just spraying the weeds, but here's a solar powered robot to do it. Or there's a company out of Australia that is using LoRaWAN, which is a different kind of signal than cell. It's a much cheaper, and it's a far better um, uh, it's far better for difficult to manage terrain, we'll say. Cell signal is a very tight signal and it carries big data packets. LoRaWAN is just carrying small amounts of data, but it can go much further. And in areas where the signal might bounce off the hills, LoRaWAN can actually get into the valleys. So
Oh,
it's a really fantastic technology that I don't think is utilized as much as it should be. So helping, the ear tag company come into Canada and using our LoRaWAN network, and we can actually put private LoRaWAN networks on your farm.
cool.
Yeah, and then we also have our data centers, and I don't think anybody knows that to the degree that they should. Like we have six
You're
tier
gonna
two
know
agriculture.
now.
Yeah. Well, I seem to talk about it a lot because, like, I'm from here and I had no idea that SaskTel had data centers. I've been at the company for about 16 months, and prior to that, I was like, I just thought of data centers as the big names in the tech industry. I had no idea that this Saskatchewan telecom had them. And we've got 6 tier 2 and tier 3 data centers in an incredibly safe geographically located area, but also geopolitically. And because we're a crown, we have incredibly strict rules about how our data centers operate, how safe the data is there, um, uh, making sure that there aren't any kind of breaches or crossovers. So it's an incredibly good option for people to utilize this as a data storage facility.
Right. Well, from the farmer's viewpoint, with the ability to change the signals to help them be able to go across a longer distance, and it's all about the data and being able to transmit it, gather it, and be able to see it. I mean, that's part of what you're doing, is making the data available to the farmers so they can utilize it, right?
Absolutely. And we're looking at it from a enablement perspective. So I, as SaskTel, don't want to create these specific data collection tools like the sensors or dashboards or anything like that. I want to work with companies and provide the back end infrastructure that they need to build their tool off of it. So like we work with this one really fantastic company. They're called Cavalli. They've been in the oil and gas industry for like 37 years, like long-standing company that are using enterprise grade dashboarding tools in the oil and gas industry and other heavy industries. And they realize that, hey, farming has just as much interest, just as many data points as these other industries, and nobody's really looking at it in this regard. So they came to us and we started developing an environment, we'll say, and started testing out a whole pile of different sensors and data points, and how can we pull this together. And Cavalli's system, because it's that enterprise grade dashboarding, it can pull the data from anything. So whether you have APIs or you have logon credentials, it can make it talk. And that's one of the biggest issues that we've seen in ag tech, is that there's some fantastic products out there, but they don't necessarily share their data with each other. Right. There's no way to analyze it in a really nice, cohesive way. So finding options in dashboarding like Cavalli that can take everything and put it together in one place, all of a sudden you can create reports or track your data, track your grain, track your fuel usage, the inputs in and out. How do we log it so that we can track it? But then we also have this side benefit of traceability when we can log things to that degree. Yeah. And I think there's so much of the ag industry that is about traceability, without even meaning to be. Like, these are fantastic tools that the farms need. But this one, that the farm that I mentioned before that we were doing the fleet tracking program with, yeah, without even trying, they rattled off 15 different apps and platforms that they use, just without even sneezing. Two problems that have been really plaguing us for quite a while. And there's some great platforms out there, don't get me wrong. Like, there's like the ops centers from John Deere, like there's Climate Field View, like there's some fantastic programs out there, but they have their specific API partners. And this takes it one step further, where it can take all of that and any other data that you're looking for. It can be static, it can be a spreadsheet, and they'll be able to help you visualize it.
Yeah. Well, and there are a lot of technologies out there. You might know that the sponsor of this show is actually a company that has software applications within the food supply chain. And it just depends on what you need. But with the advent of AI and the ability to upload and download data back and forth, there are lots of options out there, like you were saying, depending on what the needs of the individual application are. I think the exciting part from your perspective with SaskTel is you can deal with a lot of the data that the farmers are producing. You can pass that and transmit, and you're enabling the technology piece of it for them and the telecom piece of it for them to be able to actually communicate it, and
Absolutely.
serving all your customers everywhere. That's really important.
Yeah. And I just because that I'm a telecom that's in Saskatchewan and I'm a Saskatchewan Crown Corporation, the only thing that I can't do outside of my provincial borders is sell a cell phone. I can do data and IoT literally everywhere. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting new aspect that SaskTel is really starting to venture down. And I'm incredibly blessed to be on a team that very supportive, and we all kind of specialize. Like there's one person's in smart mining, one person is smart communities. So we are really looking at it as a holistic strategy. It's there is data being produced everywhere.
Mhm.
How can we take a look at it in these specific verticals, and what are the unique aspects of those verticals? And agriculture really does have that unique tie because
And I want
yeah,
to say that, I mean, I know you're focused on Saskatchewan because that's where you are. But like you said, your capabilities could be taken outside of that. And I think in the food industry in general, and in other parts of Canada, close to where you are, there are just a lot of needs there. There's a lot of data that's produced, and the ability to be able to use that data in a way that is productive, where you can make actionable decisions that the farmers can see that, like you were talking about, in some kind of dashboard. And
yeah,
I just think the future for the food industry is really bright as newer technologies are adapted by them. I'm just really excited about it. And I love
absolutely. And I think that's also how we're going to get to feeding this growing population that we have in the world is, how can we apply these technologies to make us 3% better this year and 5% better next year, and you know reduce our carbon footprints but still improve the yields that are coming off and making more and more food available to the whole world. um, and and it is interesting to see some companies are starting um, to provide, we'll call it bonuses, premiums for products that we can prove the traceability record on. And I think that's a really great way of empowering more and more and driving more of this technology to be adopted. When we can start finding the examples of time savings or fuel savings or what have you in that regard, it's only empowered by uh, premiums on the back end for the farms, like being encouraged to reduce your pesticide because you're getting an extra 10% bonus on the oats that you deliver.
it.
Those sort of things are really going to push the industry in a way that, um, like, we'll get there on our own, but this is just going to speed things up.
Well, absolutely. And I think, as you talked about being in Canada, there are some different
Mhm.
tracking regulations where you want to be able to track and trace, because you have different taxes there than, we are a worldwide show. So all countries and even some
Yep.
provinces are different. But I know there in Canada, you've got some different regional differences where you need to be able to report on some things.
Yeah. So we have a carbon tax up here. So it's definitely it's a unique aspect, and there are a lot of people that have very differing opinions on it. But it
Well, we
is
don't need to
it
get
is
into
the
that.
world we live in. It is
There
the
are
world
going
we
to be
live in.
different opinions on a lot of things, but
Yeah.
um,
But
we don't.
they
No, I just,
when
you have an example of some of the savings that were actually tracked there in Canada. I think lentils was your example.
yeah. So there is an organization out here in which is based out of Saskatoon here. It's headed by Dr. Stephen Webb. They released a very in-depth research paper where they compared Saskatchewan Western Canada, Canada to the world, and compared our carbon footprint for production versus everybody else. And just to give you some background, the part of the reason for this is like there's a lot of mandates to get us in the ag industry here to reduce our carbon footprint, but we also aren't getting the credit for what we've already done. And so a lot of what this study went into to do was it really wanted to show that we're already doing the right things, and that by some of these traceability products, we'll be able to really prove that, you know, hey, we're doing it as best as we can, but here's what it is today. So this study was released back in January, and there's so much misinformation about the Canadian industry. But Saskatchewan started doing minimum or zero till back in the 90s. And as of 2016, 93% of cropland here in Saskatchewan is minimum or zero till. So why is that important? Well, it sequesters carbon. It creates a thatch that traps carbon in the soil. So Saskatchewan and Western Canada farmers have a lower carbon footprint than Canada in general, or we emit 67% less greenhouse gases than all of our global competitors when it comes to producing canola, but we're even better when it comes to producing lentils. We are so efficient when it comes to lentils that you would have to load the container ship in a Canadian port and circle the globe 3.5 times and burn all of that fuel in order to use the same amount of carbon as we do. Like, it's just an absurd
Wow.
gap in our production.
Mm-hmm.
Saskatchewan and Western Canadian farmers have a 29% and 13% lower footprint on wheat. Like, it is, I really encourage everybody to take a look at that Global Institute for Food Security's report. And they have it in a great little snapshot, but you can really see just how efficient Saskatchewan farms are to start with, Western Canada farms are, and just Canada in general. Like, they've done a great job of breaking it down and seeing that because of these practices that we already have, we can prove that we're really good. So now that as we are implementing more and more of these traceability tools, shaving those 3 and 5% off, we are going to be exponentially better than anybody else out there at what we do.
Yeah, those are powerful numbers, really powerful numbers for, the benefits of what steps have already been taken, and you have enough time that's gone by where you can actually see the results of that. But because I know there is a move in a lot of places to really minimize tilling because of the reasons that you were talking about. And it's great that there's an actual study that shows some of the numbers. And as you said, when you are starting, you're not starting down where most of the world is. You've already made a lot of improvements, and then it's just going to go on from there. But you're already at a great level and doing so much better than the rest of the world. Well, thank you for sharing all these insights with us. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we go today?
I just really want to encourage everybody to take a look at what technology is out there in the ag tech space. Like, we've got everything from using AI on satellite imagery and then creating soil analytics based off of that, to these GPS ear tags on cows so that you're not driving around looking for your cows. There's a really cool company out of Canada here that does biometric scans of cows and can tell if they're sick or if they're about to give birth. And there's all sorts of in-field monitoring systems, whether it's soil moisture probes to know, is there subsoil moisture in order to make a fungicide purchase decision? Like, should we be using more inputs? Is there the water reserves there, even if it's not raining? Hey, we've got there's a system that can report back to you on your cattle's water. Is there enough? Is it frozen? And up here in Canada, that's a real thing we got to deal with. But there's all this technology that's out there, and I really encourage people to take a look at what's available and to see how it can impact you on your farm, or just understand what's going into the food that's being grown, that you're getting in the grocery store. Like, we're really proud of the food that we grow up here. It is incredibly high quality, and it is incredibly, low carbon footprint. And I think the ag industry and the food industry are so symbiotic. Like, we go hand in hand.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather, for being on our show today and sharing with us. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And to our audience, thank you for listening. And please subscribe and make comments. Let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Pam Linemiller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.